Welcome to your front row seat of Encore. The Encore series is a fan favorite follow-up to conversations started on the Life Possible podcast. Encore highlights interview details and discussion topics that left us curious and wanting more. Without further ado, please welcome back to the stage your Encore hosts, Wendy White-Stevens of the Real Women of Ideal Protein, Dr. John Barnes, and their featured guest.
Hi, everybody. I am Wendy White-Stevens, front woman for the Real Women of Ideal Protein. Happy to be back today with another amazing episode. I know that you are all going to love it as much or more than I do, if that's possible. In 2016, I lost about 120 pounds with the Ideal Protein protocol. It was life-changing. It was also dream-changing. And that's one of the things that we will end up touching on today is the Ideal Protein experience goes well beyond simply life-changing, which it absolutely is. But today we're going to dive into how dream-changing that can be. I've got my co-host, Dr. John Barnes, and our guest ready to join us.
Hey, how's it going, Wendy?
It's going great, Dr. Barnes. How about for you?
It's going great. It's Friday.
Yay, and there she is. We have Jessica Bengtson with us.
Hello.
Hey, she's got the cutest voice too.
Right?
Really kind of highlights how my voice carries. We first met Jessica in 2022 when Ideal Protein featured her as she was embarking on her dream of a lifetime. She had always wanted to skydive. I have never wanted to skydive.
Me neither.
She ended up, and I'm like, no, I do good going up. She lost 132 pounds with the team at MBS Wellness in Colorado. And the time came, she was ready to jump, and jump she did. Dr. Barnes and I actually had the pleasure of meeting Jessica in November of 2022 at a San Antonio Super Weekend, which is an Ideal Protein event where coaches and clinic owners get together, network, learn a lot of stuff, and just elevate our game with our peeps. And so it was awesome to be able to reconnect with Jessica recently. Jessica, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you guys?
We've been good.
Awesome.
It's been a great start to 2024, our year of transformation.
It still makes you giddy, doesn't it?
It does. I love it. There are so many things that I can relate to the transformation going on right now in 2024 with Ideal Protein Corporate, Ideal Protein in general, all of our clinic owners, our clients, myself, my dogs, like everything. There's this transformation globally underway, and Ideal Protein is my favorite part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking about Jessica. I was scrolling through the episodes of the Life Possible podcast, looking for something to listen to again. And I saw Jessica's, the thumbnail for the dynamic duo, which triple threat, the three of you, the two coaches at MBS Wellness, Jennifer, Allison, and Jessica. And I thought, you know what, that was a really good, feel-good episode. Let me watch this again. And I was watching it, and I love the story. You know, I always love being reconnected to the fact that Ideal Protein is dream changing, right? It changed my dreams. You know, the first time I was connected to that was when I was literally leaving my dream job to start working with Ideal Protein. I was driving away of my own volition from my dream job and couldn't have been happier about it, right? And I thought, Ideal Protein is dream changing, right? This doesn't need to be a secret. But it drove me into your story and the fact that you jumped, you achieved one of your biggest dreams. And I thought, what's life like after the jump? What is she doing? So I was like, you know what? Time for a wellness check. And I reached out to Jessica. So happy that we were able to get reconnected. Didn't really know what her story beyond the jump was going to hold, but I was definitely interested in the wellness check with her. Jessica, when you got my email, were you like, what does she want?
No, it was more like, okay, yes, let's talk. But I was a little nervous, not to lie, not gonna lie. It was I just wasn't sure what it was, entailing, because the last time we had talked, it was, a whole nother conversation. So this was a nice surprise.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one thing that I love is that as I meet people in the Ideal Protein community, it's a tie that binds. It's a tie that binds, and it's a tie that transcends every other barrier, socially, politically, any kind of barrier. I say, like, Honda versus Harley, like, it doesn't matter what you ride, like Ideal it ties us all together. And so that's kind of what made me feel comfortable going, like, let's just do this wellness check, right? And I do have something happen last night as I was doing my reading, okay? And I thought, this is perfect for tomorrow. All right, so I'm just going to read a short snippet of what I read last night as a segue into where we're going with this. On page 61, Dr. Tran shares with us, a diet can help you lose weight, but it cannot help you stabilize it, because losing pounds and keeping them off are two separate realities. If you don't grasp this, long-lasting, trouble-free weight loss will elude you. And I thought, yeah, it does. And yeah, it can. He's touched on it a couple of times before in the book, the separate contracts and things like that. But that's really where my interest was with your wellness journey, Jessica, was what was life like after the jump, AKA after phase 1, right? I either need to shake this sister down for her best practices, because we all need them. We all pointers, or let's just see how we can support each other in the experience that generally real life deals us in phase 2 and 3.
Right.
Why don't you share with us how you felt coming out of phase 1 after your wild success and everything you had learned? What were some of the experiences you were taking with you into your stabilization experience?
Well, I was, pretty nervous, which I know comes with the territory. I had such significant weight loss, and it was consistent, significant weight loss. And then it was time for phase 2. And I remember looking at Allison like, are we sure? Like, okay. I will trust the process. And I was scared, but I was definitely like, I felt like I had a better handle on food at that point. But I didn't, I felt like I kind of got the control over what I put into my body a little bit more back. Yeah. And so I felt a little, in addition to being nervous, I felt pretty confident going into phase 2. Like, I can do this. I've got this. And I was so prepared. I had pre-portioned everything out, all my almonds, all my nuts, all my peanut butter, all my cheese. My cheese.
My cheese.
My cheese.
My cheese. We see this all the time, right? There's like, why wouldn't somebody just be filled with confidence and some trepidation, right? That kind of fear. I had always heard, I was still in my phase 1 experience, and I had started working for Ideal Protein. And so I had the experience of going into a lot of different clinics and talking with coaches and a lot of dieters. And I'm like, what is this business about, like, the comfort of the phase 1 sheet? I'm ready to blow this sheet out of the water and move on as soon as I can, right? What do you guys see? What do you see at Reset Wellness, Dr. Barnes, when people are approaching that stabilization migration?
It's funny because half of them are like, are you sure? Right? Just like Jessica said. The other half are kind of like, let's get this thing going. Right. And they're very quick to be like, I kind of feel like I'm out. Right. Mm-hmm. But I think most of that part was happening before we have had the new phase 2, right? The revamped, the macro code and the sheets. And we try to pump it up around here that, it's almost the most exciting phase. It's the most fun phase. It's the most fun phase because now we're bringing foods in like right away in a controlled manner, as opposed to last time where you didn't get new foods. until, okay, phase 4 and have fun. Right? It's phase 4. All the foods are in play. Just don't mix these. Don't cross the streams. And, see how well you do. Right?
There was ambiguity for sure previously. And so I do love, like, I always kind of find organic ways to set expectations that, phase 1 isn't, or phase 2 isn't optional. Neither is phase 3.
Yeah.
So by the time we get there, they're fairly conditioned. But I love how Jessica shares that she felt like she had her power back, right? She was in control of the cookie, right? Not the cookie in control of her. Okay. I love that you also felt like in our conversation prior to today, you shared with me that you felt like you had severed the tie from emotional eating.
Yes. I was I'm there's a way to say it that doesn't sound so terrible, but I was an emotional eater for a very large portion of my life.
Yeah. And there, I know there is stigma to that. I know that there is shame to that, but when you say it, people are going to go, oh, me too.
Yeah.
Like, me too. Dr. Barnes.
Can I jump in real quick too? And for me, I think one of the most important parts of this is not taking on that identity, right? It's not I am or I was an emotional eater. It's I engage in emotional eating, right? It's a behavior that we engage in, but it's not an identity that we take on. And I think that's super important. Correct. And when people are sitting in this other chair and they say, well, I'm an emotional eater. You know what? If we can give up that as an identity and identify that as a behavior that you have, it's going to be easier to distance yourself from that.
Yeah, yes, so true. And, I'd like for you, Dr. Barnes, just to share briefly some of the science behind how in phase 1, we feel so empowered. We aren't called to deviate and cheat. Like, how does the body's ecosystem set us up for that kind of distance when previously dieting under other models or whatever we've gone at it doing with weight loss? How is the ideal protein phase 1 protocol different in supporting that resistance?
Well, funny you should ask, Wendy. Now, you know what? Again, you just like to get me all worked up about the metabolic state of ketosis and the fact that this is a metabolic protocol. This works from the inside out, right? When we do this program, we're not losing weight to get healthy. We're actually getting healthy to lose weight.
Yeah.
And the more that we see, the research in the state of ketosis and ketogenic nutrition has gone through the roof. There's not a day goes by that there aren't studies that are being published every single day about the effects and the benefits of this and how it's actually a natural state for the human body. So we get into phase 1 and we're feeling amazing. I mean, I didn't expect to feel that way. I expected to lose weight, but oh my God, when my energy came back and the brain fog went away and I felt like I was fully present and alive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, I think the key in our transition and the key to trying to coach 2 and 3 is that it's not about the weight as much as I want to stay feeling that good.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. It's about
and so it's understanding. I want to master my metabolism. I want to keep my metabolism working for me. Right. And I don't want to work against it. And I think that's probably, key. And that's probably what you're looking for.
It's absolutely key. It's like how understanding that we have optimized our fuel. So we have optimized everything else, right? Everything else falls into place. One of my favorite things, there's so many, was that, you start feeling that energy, better sleeping, all of the attributes of being in ketosis, maybe well before you reach that goal. Like we set out with that, like, that's my goal. That's my finish line. That's what I'm working towards. But then there's like, I walked in the door. I remember this so distinctly. Love my job so much that I drove an hour and 15 minutes at a minimum each way daily to do that job. One day I walked in the house, and I set my stuff down, and I'm like in the kitchen, just starting to make my dinner, making dinner for the family and the phase 1 structure and all of that. And I thought, I just walked in after that drive home and I'm not exhausted. Like, I don't want to fake adulting until I can go to bed, right? Like, I feel so good. And by my default, I'm like, let's just see if it happens tomorrow, right? Still lacking trust. But I was like, let's just see if this happens tomorrow. And it did. And I don't know how far into phase 1 I was. Honestly, it was probably 3 weeks or so, like not that long to start really reaping the daily benefits of the protocol to against just hitting that goal. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that is part of what fuels our our confidence moving out of phase 1. And so Jessica, my next question, when we were talking, she was so good about just being open to my questions, because I really like to drill down on this part of the experience in order to perfect my craft, my support, and my own lifestyle, right? And so, share with me kind of how you approached phase 2. Allison was your coach. I asked, did you do your one-on-one session? Tell me about that experience. And then what transpired after that initial meeting after your step down week?
Okay. So in my first, I read all the material. I was going through coaching training, so I knew about the step down week, but it didn't click that I actually had to go through it. And so, when I was ready for phase 2, I was like, yes, here we go. And then it's like, oh, you have a step down week. Okay. So, into the step down week, I was really diligent. I kept track, I wrote everything down. I was one of those ones who didn't write things down in phase 1. So writing it down, my step down week was really pivotal. And and then going into, my first meeting after my step down week, and having Allison, literally, we just had to go through page 1 of how to, I was so excited for cottage cheese and nuts. Like, I knew exactly how to build. I knew exactly what I wanted to do my first meal. I really wanted like a yogurt parfait and a breakfast burrito with like a tortilla. So I had a plan.
That's what we need. That's perfect.
Yes, going into phase 2, and I was really excited. Like I said, I had everything pre-portioned out. It was just really awesome. And then I was really, really confident in the first 5 to 6 weeks. Meeting with Allison, I was writing everything down. Sticking to my macro code. We were increasing my carbs. It was really spot on.
Yeah. Solid, right?
Yeah. And then life happens.
Yeah. Proof in concept, right? You were still kind of carrying with you the torch of confidence and who you felt like you had become by virtue of the phase 1 experience, right?
Yes,
and then I asked, because I really do want to know, how do we crack this nut forever? If we could get this right, let's do a roadmap. And that's what I hope to achieve. And I said, did you continue journaling? How long did you continue journaling? And you shared with me that you ended up one night, went to a restaurant, friends and family, had a great night. Share that with us.
Oh yeah, I think we went out. I can't even remember if it was with my family or just me and my husband. We went out to celebrate something, and just had dinner. I was like, I know how to eat on phase 2. I won't. I don't need anything carby. But then I did throw in a cocktail, and I don't know what it is. It's like that magic cocktail. It was like, oh, you don't need to write this down, and then I never wrote it down again. So
anything, right? Anything like journaling was dead to you all of a sudden.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's important because you're not alone in that experience, right? Sometimes people just kind of hit this snag and they're like, I really don't know how to enter this. And then all of a sudden we don't do dinner. And then 3.5 weeks later, we haven't journaled anything else either. Yes. Right. So as you're going through this phase 2 experience, you're still fairly confident in what's going on. And then, as you're moving away from journaling and starting to experience your macro targets, converting to the macro code week over week with your net carb increase, and you end up kind of getting this sneaking suspicion that maybe the emotional tide of food could still be there.
Yes. Yes, I learned that. And I think I remember feeling a little disappointed in the moment. Kind of like, oh, man, I thought I kicked it, or I don't know.
Right.
It's a sickness, but you know what I mean? It's like, I thought I was past this, and so I just remember feeling disappointed in the moment, like, oh my gosh, how am I still, wanting to eat when I feel this way?
Yeah. Yeah. I know the science, right? Well, why is all this emotional stuff still here?
Yes.
And I think it's fair enough to say that, if you put it in context, we could have been in this dysfunctional relationship with food our whole lives, right? So one magical phase 1 experience coupled with new life-changing education around your macro targets with your coach could lend someone to believe that the problem is solved, right?
Yep.
And then lo and behold, it can be frightening. It can be scary and confusing to go, how is this coming back in? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. I don't know, you've seen that too, Dr. Barnes, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, too, I'll kind of also fall back on the science aspect of that because I kind of have my theories. But for me, two things that we always teach when we're in phase 2. Most of us, when we enter the program and need to enter the program, we're dealing with metabolic dysfunction. We're dealing with insulin resistance. It was something that I created in my body because I, at a later age, I didn't have issues before, could easily lose weight, whatever, but I created that. So it was brand new to me, right? I thought that I was fixed after phase 1 and that everything, hey, I'm fixed. Yeah, everything's going to work the same, right?
Yeah.
And very quickly learn, whoa, no. Okay. Right. Yeah. And so I think the backside of that, being a recovering sugar addict, right? You also underestimate the pull. And I kind of feel like when we're in phase 1 and it's the first time, everything's brand new. You're still trying to follow the rules. You don't want to break the rules, make your coach mad or do whatever. And so it's easier, right? But then we start adding those things back in that we have maybe an addiction to innocently.
Right.
And it just takes one episode to start pulling you right back in.
Absolutely.
And again, I was dead angry when I finally realized that I was sucked back in again. And I think that's what's helped me for the longest. I got caught with my hand in the chocolate chip bag. Sneaking the chocolate chips to get my fix of sugar.
Using the chocolate chips.
And literally when that happened to me, I had this out of body experience and I was so angry. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Right?
Yeah.
And so for me, that was the watershed moment that really helped me get out of it.
Yeah.
For long term.
Yeah. It's tricky because it's like, how did this happen on my watch?
Yep.
I thought I was being so vigilant and so cautious and all of that. I thought, for me, I have an addiction to sugar as well. It's not necessarily savory things. But clearly I wasn't too discretionary at 276 pounds. And I'd come to the realization, like one day I had purchased a baked good from our community market, which I love supporting, the community market vendors and all that. And so I had whatever I bought, which is a responsible portion size. And then the next day I was upstairs kind of getting ready, starting my morning, and I wasn't even thinking about breakfast, but there was this low-key behavior ready to come in. I wanted to go downstairs and find whatever else that was sugar laden and have that. And I thought, I wasn't even thinking about that, right? I'm trying to pick out clothes, right? And all of a sudden here I am wanting to relive yesterday. That's tricky, right?
Yeah.
Very, very tricky to sit with that, because prior to my phase 1 and stabilization experience, I'd have had something in the house ready to go and get, and I would have just done it, right? Like, I mean, no questions asked. Like, that would have been breakfast, maybe lunch too. I don't know. So there's a lot of kind of turning over of the leaves, so to speak, and going, okay, this is a part of it. We definitely have the science. The macro code is rock solid. I'll say that to anybody who'll listen and learn. But the human element, the humanity piece comes in. I think it's more at the forefront with kind of our liberty in decision making and choices in phase 2 and 3, right? Let me just look at my notes really quick. I don't want to miss. So here's also what's interesting. Jessica shared with me, and I love this, that she was eating to her macro code, because I'd asked her, when those feelings started coming in, when cravings started coming in, what did your plate look like? Were you still adhering to the macro code? Do you remember what you said to me?
I think so. I was, yeah, that's what I was just saying. It was portion control. Because, I was sticking to the macro foods.
Yeah, the ideal food choices were your predominant category. Out of the ideal food choices, fair food choices, poor food choices, the choices were still mostly aligning in that ideal category.
Yeah, but then it started quickly from counting out 25 pistachios to, well, this looks like 25, to I'll bring the bag to work with me.
Yeah. Start tossing back the nuts. I hear that so often, right? People love the nuts, they love the peanut butter, and they love the cheese, right?
My cheese.
It's my downfall.
Yeah. So some tricky behaviors kind of start creeping in. It's almost like, not that you were intentionally doing this, but kind of cheating the system, right?
Yes.
And going, okay, even though this is an ideal food choice, I'm no longer observing serving size. And that right there is so important, because that is exactly how a good food choice and modifying the behavior shifts the category, really shifts the value to your body. And that's kind of a more low-key sabotage situation than just going like knuckles deep in the carrot cake, right? I'm serious. And you would be like, this is not right if you're,
Another Wendyism.
Swiping the cake. But it was like, hey, they're just my nuts, But there's still a carbohydrate value as well as a fat value towards your macro code with those nuts. And so it can be the little things that aren't an issue when observing serving size. Maybe that's how we start moving the needle, right? I think I see that a lot more than, because I think there's a point where people stay kind of fearful of pulling in those poor food choices, right? And so they're more responsive and directed towards pulling in the foundational carbohydrates, the healthy fats, and keeping their lean protein good, their veggie count up, having the fruits, whatever the ideal food categories, but they're moving the needle on the portions, right? And that can have the same effect as, like I said, knuckles deep in the carrot cake, even though we don't feel like it's as dangerous a move.
Right.
Right? It's a slow burn.
It is a slow burn. It's a dangerous slow burn.
So you realized a couple of these things were starting to happen, right?
Yes.
And you and your family regularly vacation in Florida, right? I'm jealous of the scallops you guys do. Scalloping. I love that word. It is a real word. So outside of phase 1, you're in stabilization, and it's time for the family trip to Florida. How does that go?
I went into the family trip with utter strong confidence. Like, I know how to do this. My mom is eating, we're all pretty much on the same page. I cook dinner, so dinner is covered. It's phase 2. And then, I get to Florida, and then I'm in Florida, and it's nice and sunny, and we go to the beach, and we, go downtown Tampa, or we go scalloping. And then, of course it starts usually probably with a beer. And then, then my mom and I have a really awesome way of sabotaging each other. If she grabs the bag of nuts, I will join right in. And if I'm eating healthy or she's eating healthy, we're pretty good at, either keeping each other on or completely, totally saying, you know what, those nuts sound really awesome today. So I think in that trip, it was a lot of that, I think. And, and then coming back was, I wanted to eat crow a little bit, but I made the mistake of not stepping on the scale afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you shared that with me, it was like that for anybody who ever sees this episode, okay, from the bottom of my heart, when you do not want to get on the scale is the time you need to most. And I'll do your little ding ding ding, our little sound bite. But here's why. Here's what I know after not getting on the scale and then getting on the scale and then modifying my behavior to get on when I don't want to get on. Okay. It's not as bad as you think it's going to be if you get on the first time.
In the moment. Yes.
In the moment, you've got to go, even if you don't think it with your app, so your coach doesn't see, just you have a private moment, go to the bathroom, take off all your clothes, remove your hair tie, take off your jewelry, whatever, get on. Put a number on it, right? Put a number on it, breathe out, put a number on it.
Yes.
And then decide what you need to do for your wellness, right? Because it's not as bad as it seems on the front end of that fear. That's what it is, right? We're scared, sad, ashamed, embarrassed, all the things. We can't believe that just happened, right? In real life. And the longer we delay, the more we're going to get closer to the number we didn't want to see when we didn't get on the scale.
Absolutely.
That is hard. That is heavy hitting. And that is the truth, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that, and then what did it look like coming back out of vacation? Because you still were supposed to be having this structured experience to round out, the maintenance piece and everything. How did your relationship evolve with your coach?
So I was still meeting with Allison. We've kind of met off and on, throughout my phase 2, phase 3, and now back into phase 1 process. And she, at first, she encouraged me. She was like, please just come in and meet with me. And then I talked myself out of I don't want to get on the scale. I know I had a rough week and I should have in that moment gotten back on the scale, because then after that, it was just kind of I talked myself out of it quite often. I stuck my head in the sand. I didn't want to look. I knew changes were happening because, your clothes start to feel a little different. And, my energy levels were plummeting.
I was going to say those things we really want that sustained energy, right? And so there are signs, there are obvious signs. It's one of the beautiful things of phase 1. You cannot unknow how good you could feel. And that is a benchmark everybody deserves to have, right? And most people don't know how good they could actually feel at their current age. And now here you are in this really weird place going, I know that I just don't feel as good as I could.
Yes.
Right.
And I was craving foods that were, I wasn't craving before, but I was craving the higher fat, more sugar foods. And I don't really crave food, but those were ones I was okay. So instead of going for the, apple, I went for the, chips. So.
Yep. Yeah, I know. And, to that, you also shared with me, outside of not getting on the scale, you were attempting to get back into phase 1 for a little tune-up.
Yes, I did.
Right.
Yes.
And so how was that going at that time?
So, I started off strong. Week 1 was okay, but the first time I did phase 1, it was a no-brainer. I stuck to it. I was strict. I shared with Wendy. I definitely didn't weigh my vegetables. That was the only thing I didn't stick to 100%. But otherwise, I didn't deviate, and it was a no-brainer. It was super easy to follow. Challenging. It had its moments, especially when you socialize. But going and doing that, it was easy. And then phase 2, little challenging. So I was like, okay, going back into phase 1, let me just get back to where I know I'm comfortable and where, let's get back there and we'll start essentially over. Well, in that point in my life, my brain just and my mind was not there. I was not focused on my wellness, on my health, on me in general. So it just didn't go quite as planned.
Yeah, it wasn't a success, and it's okay to say that. Many people have false starts, and that's okay too, right? That's part of the experience. Dr. Tram says it's because the emergency is off, either when people stop coming in for appointments and don't round out their phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 experience. It's because there's no longer this really alarming emergency. But then it's also, I think, and Dr. Barnes, you can shed some light on this too, if you agree in some of the science, but at some point we just know too much because we've been well educated. Right? It's dangerous. It's like, what do I do with all these tools? Right? So maybe that looks like still putting the cheese on the salad or still buying the low carb tortillas, right? Because, and I love this, I have had somebody literally use the term phase 1 adjacent with me. And I'm like, oh, we're virtual. That's all that I'm saying. But, Dr. Barnes at Reset Wellness, what is your experience with maybe that failed tune-up, the removing bricks from the wall of the experience or corner pieces of the puzzle, like journaling, like sticking to the shopping list for phase 1?
That's just it. I love how you said we know too much, right? Mm-hmm. I think the second, third, and fourth time you get back in phase 1, your keto cheats, right? I mean, we talk about, these cheats are gonna knock you out, ruin a whole week. But these cheats aren't, they're not going to knock you out of ketosis, but they're certainly going to slow down your loss, right? Mm-hmm. But everybody tries the second, third, and fourth time around to hack it, right? Oh, I've got my, and I'm literally making an email in my head right now that'll get out on paper soon. And the headline will be the top hacks for phase 1. 3 ideal protein foods a day, 6 ounces of protein a day, 4 cups of vegetables a day, 6 to 4 ounces of water, journaling, come in for your visits.
Eat the sheet.
Hacks.
Eat the sheet.
Those are the hacks, right?
Right.
You can't hack.
We'll give you all the answers. And it's just, it can be so tricky, like you said, and in my mind when I'm kind of in that state. First of all, to me, as an individual who is pursuing wellness forever, and a coach, those kinds of things, now those marginal keto things are the most painful way to experience phase 1 because you're doing so much right that you're just missing it by that much, like maybe week over week. That's the worst, that is the worst, and we all deserve better than this, right? Don't do this to yourself, right? Yeah. Just dial it back to the basics. Leave the things off the grocery list, because that little margin is going to take away all the good, and you're going to be super frustrated. So fast forward, life happens. I did want to touch on one thing, Dr. Barnes, you did say, third or fourth, fifth time, for tune-ups. That's the reality of it, because you know what that is? That's preventative care. Okay. If we don't start embracing a tune-up or phase 1, a second time, or whatever your number is, that's your number. Okay. That's your timeline, and that's okay. But it's preventative care. It's not a default safety net where you're stuck because of failure. It's because you at least know that resource is there for you, and it is preventative care, because it may not be something as interventional as your first phase 1 stay, right?
Well, and that's the whole thing, Wendy. Again, we have to understand weight regain is not failure, right?
No.
And getting into phase 1 again, a tune-up is not a failure. It's an ideal protein best practice. Right. Amanda Gabriel says it best when she coaches, and she says, look, the annual tune-up is the ideal protein best practice. We teach that in our clinic. We coach that every January. I think we had 30 people come back this January to do their annual, including myself, my annual tune-up. And then August, September, we also do that tune-up. So tuning up has to be a part of this maintenance thing. and that stops the regain, right?
Right.
That's why it's a
Right.
best practice.
Yeah.
You're never one and done or two and done. It's
No, nor should you be, right? Because the pancreas needs a rest. You need to reset hormone levels, cravings, all the really great things that a phase 1 tune-up can afford you. And I definitely wanted that to be a part of our conversation today. And Jessica, thank you to this point for sharing what you have. I know that this is so deeply personal. What I want to portray in the conversation we've had to this point is that sabotage doesn't just happen immediately, right? We don't just automatically move the goalpost. It is a very slow progression, and that is part of the science behind a 12-month maintenance engagement, right? Is you get to live your full life on a 12-month cycle. All the things that are generally going to happen. You have this opportunity to stay connected to your coach, be mindful of what you're doing, and have the behavioral experience of life on the other side of phase 1 with foods, right? So I do love all of it. It's some of it's painful, some of it's so great, right? All of it. We need all of it. We can't have one without the other. And we get into where kind of life happens while we want wellness, right?
Yes.
We can't have one without the other there either, right? Maybe that's going to be a reoccurring theme. Jessica, why don't you share with us, you're back from vacation. We've kind of had this false start with a tune-up. You're feeling in a place that you didn't anticipate with your wellness post phase 1. And then you move into the last half of 2023.
So life happened big twice for me last year. And so it just, after coming back from vacation, it was just more, that was not my focus. And I mean, it definitely could have been. I wasn't in the right place or, mindset or whatnot. And then it turned into, oh, it's the holidays. It's okay. I'll do it after the holidays. I'll start, but I won't go crazy. Don't worry. I won't go crazy through the holidays.
Right.
And, so then, fast forward, here we are in 2024. And, even after life happened, now I took that experience and now I'm ready. I'm ready to focus on my wellness again. And, I came back into, I'm on protocol and I came back into it. I remember how I feel here and I like it here. And so, it was all a lesson and it was a much needed one, and well learned. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've learned more from my lessons than my successes, right? For as much as I just like to go, I've gotten the success, mystery solved, I'm done. Like deuces, I'm moving on to another project. I've come to know that I'm always going to be a project. I'm my own best project. But you felt like, obviously you had an experience where phase 1 wasn't right for you at the time. Right? That's okay too. It's not meant to be the situation of purgatory or punishment where we've got this kind of victim mentality and defeatist behavior going on with choices and stuff. So it can be hard to say, you know what, now's not the right time for me. I just can't right now. Right. I need to focus on just my maintenance wellness and everything else that's going on in life that is taking a priority. And then the turn of the year happened, 2024, year of transformation. And you felt like it was right. You knew like, hey, now the time is right for me to be able to elevate my priority for wellness.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you just knew kind of undeniably, right? It's time. And so when it's time, what did you do to get yourself set up?
Well, it took me probably the first month, because I just started a couple weeks ago. I came into the new year. I was just like, I don't want to always, and I really enjoyed what you said, because I always feel like when I get back into phase one, it feels more like, oh, I don't want to just always fall back on phase one. But the thing is I really enjoy how I feel in phase one. So it took me a little while to choose phase one again. But now here we are. I'm really thankful that I did. But I got myself set up. I had a plan. I know exactly what I wanted to eat my first week, from breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, everything. So,
Check.
yep. And I did. And I made it through the first week. It's like, my body just is like, oh, we're doing this. Okay, I got this. I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I'm here. Here we are, almost 2 weeks down, and happy camper.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're here
awesome.
too.
And
Go ahead.
I'll challenge you, Jessica, too, and this time around, and things to consider, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having been there and done this myself, having almost developed the phase 2 protocol while we were waiting for something, right? We went down the rabbit hole, and the key to this thing is that carbohydrate tolerance level, right?
Yep.
And I've had to come to grips with the fact that my carb tolerance is super low, and in order to stay feeling that good, your body remembers this, and I like how this feels, right? And there is nothing wrong with maintaining closer to a ketogenic long-term diet and what we would call a low carb, healthy fat diet.
Mm-hmm.
The way we like to teach it is we prioritize protein, we fill in with healthy fat, but we are super cautious when we use carbs.
Right.
Yeah.
We need to hit our protein target. We can enjoy fats when we're not in a weight loss situation, right? The healthy fats that are on that. But I don't need to include anything on that red list every single day. Right. For me, the red list is my special thing for the week. Mm-hmm. I might do it once or twice during that week, but it's certainly not a daily event if I want to stay feeling good. Mm-hmm. And, again, not to mention if I want to keep my weight effortlessly where we want it to be.
Right.
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 100%.
Yeah. And I think going forward, I'm sorry.
No, I love it.
I was just like, going forward, I think I learned that throughout the last, season, that I think I also have to live in the lower carb side of life, which is doable and totally okay. And that way, when you actually do, have carbs, it's like a treat. And so that's kind of cool. Something to look forward to.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? We used to teach it's like you've got two cousins, right? One cousin is perfectly happy playing by himself, won't cause any problems or whatever. You bring the other one, put him in the room and leave him for 5 minutes and it's destroyed, right? Your nuts and your cheese aren't going to cause that damage unless their cousin carb comes and opens the door. Right. And again, it doesn't have to be a whole lot. Mm-hmm. They won't create that damage though, unless it opens that door.
Right.
We can't store fat in the absence of insulin. Uh-oh. What did you say? We can't
what
store
was
fat.
That?
We cannot store fat in the absence of insulin. Right. Learned that at the Metabolic Health Summit this past weekend.
I love that.
It's a scientific thing that when you start wrapping your head around all of this, it makes it even more understandable and makes that macro code even easier to work with.
And that's exactly why it's important to understand the science, right? It's not enough that phase 1 works. It's not enough that the macro code works. It's at some point you've got to take ownership of the why it works so that you can apply it as a standardized lifestyle, right? And I agree. I feel it for me. I just kind of boil it down to my maintenance lifestyle is a bougie phase 1, right? I get to have the cheese occasionally, something else that, like you said, is carbohydrate laden. But Jessica, what you said here, let me see if I can read my writing. That's one of my worst things. I can't read my own writing. I'm not even a doctor.
I was just going to say, you're a doctor, aren't you, Wendy?
I know. I enjoy how I feel in phase one. You said that to me. My hope for everybody who ever aspires to create better wellness for themselves is to say, I enjoy how I feel in maintenance.
Boom.
That's what I want for everybody, right? Is I enjoy how I feel in maintenance, because at that point, there is going to have been a permanent shift in our free will, right? And those choices and the understanding and using what we know as a force for good, right?
That's just it. It's leveraging the science for yourself so that you can win.
Yeah, because you can kind of bottle the magic of phase one. It just goes back to that, keeping your fuel sources optimized, right? Yep. And generally, I love when people will call and say, yeah, I mean, I've done Whole30, and I'm like, and they want to tell me about that. I'm like, time out. I want to hear about day 31, right? 1 through 30, inconsequential, right?
Right. What happened day 31?
Day 31, right? I mean, it's definitely something to be proud of to knuckle down for 30 days, but in our wellness world, that's just getting started.
And I think your knuckles were knee deep in carrot cake on day 31.
31.
No, that was honestly, like, let's reveal some secrets. There were two reasons I decided, after regaining 30 of the 25 pounds I had just lost the first part of 2016, that I felt like I was going to give it another try with Ideal Protein. It was new to me. Two reasons that I decided to try it. Number one, if all I had to do was stick to what I thought was a cheat sheet, like that was what my day was, and that's all that I had to focus on, okay, cool. That phase one sheet's absolutely digestible as far as my lifestyle and fitting in. Number two, I was never told I could not have carrot cake ever again, right? Now I just know where it belongs in my life. So it's not that I was setting myself up for what at the time I felt would be a life deprived of my favorite food. It was that, hey, you can do that, and we'll teach you how once we get to that point, right? For now, stick to the sheet. And I thought, all right, let's give this 90 days. And then you guys know the rest of the story. It's a good story. Yep. Jessica, I'm just looking at my notes. You navigated those big events in your life. You came back to phase one. We had a really good point in our conversation around when things weren't going so well with your wellness at the end of 2023. Your body was sending you signals, and you were receiving those signals, right? Mm-hmm. It was like you were picking up what the body was laying down, even if the wellness wasn't a focal point. And I loved that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I still listen. My body's still trying to tell me something, and I'm still listening. It's louder in phase one, and I will like into phase 2 and 3. I definitely intend to listen more.
You will. There's no way not to. That's what I love, is if you just keep going, you're going to get it, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
You're going to get it. Now, here's where we're going to pivot back to the science for Dr. Barnes to help us out. Another comment you made to me that was absolutely noteworthy was you felt like your body was wanting to go back where it was, mm-hmm. right? It wasn't kind of like, hey, this is Jessica's new set point. We're just staying here doing our new thing. Why does that happen? Is that real, Dr. Barnes, or was she playing me?
Do you have a bug in my office? Because literally that's been one of the conversations all week long, right?
Really?
And yeah, it truly has. In fact, you see one of my sticky notes says set point, doesn't it? Like,
what's up with that?
You know what? I'm going to call bull. Okay. What mm-hmm. I'll tell you, and I think this is an interesting debate, and from what I've seen, right? This whole concept of ghrelin and leptin and set points and all the things, right? It doesn't happen when ketones are still present in your bloodstream. Okay.
Okay, so let me do this for everybody, for the ladies in the back. when we are living a balanced maintenance lifestyle, the adequate protein, healthy, adequate fats, and low carbohydrates, are ketones still in our bloodstream?
Yes. Okay. When we are metabolically flexible, understand, right? While we are on this podcast, sitting in chairs talking to each other, the number one fuel that our body should be using right now is fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our body
Yep.
wants to use fat. What is the preferred fuel of the body? Well, the answer is the best, most efficient fuel for what you're doing in any given moment. And right now, fat is an easy, clean burning energy for low level activity. And that's what our body should be burning primarily. So a flexible engine, a flexible metabolism will do that. Mm-hmm. If all of a sudden the fire alarm went off and you smelled smoke and you jumped up and ran out of here, well, it's going to shift gears into carbohydrate burning so that you can run as fast as you can or lift something heavy to get out of the way, et cetera, right? But it should be able to do that. And when we wake up in the morning, if we're metabolically flexible, yes, if you prick your finger with a ketone meter, it should have some there. Okay. So ketones in the bloodstream act as natural appetite suppressants. They tell us that our body has energy that it needs, right? But if we overshoot our carbs and we get back into insulin resistance and insulin grabs control of your metabolism again, says no fat burning, we got to manage the blood sugar. That's where the leptin ghrelin thing kicks back in, and we can just climb that ladder. So when we troubleshoot hunger in phase 2, right? Oh, I'm still hungry. Well, you're not eating enough protein or fat, because protein and fat, when they go in our digestive, when they are the main things in our digestive tract, it tells our body, hey, we've got good nutrient dense food. We're not hungry.
Yeah.
But if we start getting cravings and we start getting that whole thing, when we manage cravings, it's because we've got too many carbs already, and we need to back that off.
Yeah. We've kind of poked the sleeping bear, so to speak. And so we've set off this reaction that, right?
And you said sleeping bear. I was in this great lecture this past weekend too about hibernation behavior and fructose and hibernation behavior, how it kicks on that primitive switch in our body, just like the hibernating bear getting ready for that. We do have that inborn. And when Ideal Protein says we're programmed to gain weight, right? If we flip that switch and that programming, boom, there it goes. Hibernation, weight gain, and all the behaviors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing that I have realized around eating adequate protein and adequate fats and keeping my carbohydrates in check and maintenance, one of my own personal challenges is I'm a fast eater. Okay. Like literally, I'll be like done with my dinner and my husband's cutting his meat. And I'm like, what world do you live in? Like, how are you going so slow? But so I have realized that when I am done with my food on my plate. Oh, can you hear me?
There you go. You're back. You're fast eating.
Okay. So when I'm done eating dinner, that's where sometimes I say my eyes are bigger than my macro code. And that's where I have to go like, okay, right? Like I got to give myself time. So I've had to like the behavior modification piece comes in where number one, I've discovered because I eat faster, I have to give my body time after the meal to go, yeah, we've been fed. Whereas the slower eating people out there, which I'm skeptical of, their body ends up receiving that food, their body reads it, they receive it, and they're done with their meal at a natural ending, aligning with when their food is done, right? Like, it seems like, okay, I get up, I will go clean the kitchen, I will go clean up after dinner, and I give myself permission. Like if I need more food for real, I can always have something else, but I don't need to go back for seconds until I give my body that opportunity to catch up if I've eaten that meal faster,
That's a great point.
And that, that's how you discover, by not giving up, what are my challenges, right? What is going on here? How can I better understand this, right? Because the macro code is solid gold. It legit works. And that's where I go, okay, I got to give myself time because what I just ate was perfect, right? Jessica, really, that was a comprehensive conversation around the wellness check that we had together last week. I can't understate how thankful I am for you to be willing to have this kind of a conversation, because I don't want there to be stigma around real life experiences in stabilization and maintenance. And I don't see these conversations happening near enough. And I feel like it underserves our entire patient population to not just be real, because we're all out there living pretty much the same lives. I don't care about all the details and what sets us apart, but really with the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 structure and a goal for long-term wellness so that we can live our best lives, we are going to face challenges that go beyond the science. It's that humanity and the human element piece that we need to know we're not alone with. It's not this closeted experience, nor should it be. So thank you sincerely, like from the bottom of my heart. I'm so thankful that you're such a sharing and caring person, and to have this conversation with us today. You're gonna help people that you will never meet by sharing what you shared today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm thankful you reached out. I really am. It isn't something we talk about. There are challenges, and it is a journey. It is a journey for life, and not everyone struggles with it, and we all struggle kind of in a different way. But, it's nice to know that, personally, I'm not alone. So
yeah. You're not, and sometimes it's easy to kind of get into this. I wish I didn't have this struggle, but then I think, if I didn't have this struggle to kind of crack the code on my own wellness, would I be willing to trade it for a wild card struggle? I don't know what that would be. So I'm not going to be trading out my struggles. Okay. I'm not one to hedge my bets. Okay. I've seen my hand. I'm going to continue to play it, even though it's been challenging. But thank you. Thank you so much. We do have 2 kind of fun things that we're going to do before we close out the episode. Number 1 is, I heard that Dr. Barnes received an Amazon package.
You heard? How did you hear that?
Little birdie. We all know that A to Z smile.
Right.
Package.
I'm a little scared for what's in this package, Wendy.
Tear it open.
I'm excited.
I'm going to have to shake it out a little bit. Okay. What the heck is that?
Looks to me like some hair.
Oh my gosh. Would it fit on your head?
I guess, maybe. Hang on.
What's going on here?
Let's see.
After the podcast, my expectation is that you go fluff that thing and put out a picture. Here's the deal. Dr. Barnes is now a bigwig with Ideal Protein. We are so fortunate to have him on our medical advisory board. Okay. I know for sure undeniable value is going to be had by the Ideal Protein community, the protocol, all of our colleagues, the patients of the future, the patients of the past that we get to reconnect with are purely going to benefit by your passion, your intelligence, and your quest for metabolic health.
Well, thank you, Wendy. I really appreciate that. It has been actually a dream of mine for the past couple of years. I think this is your attempt to sabotage me and get me kicked off before I even go to my first board meeting. I'm not sure if that's truly the case, right?
It's much fluffier, so go and like fluff it and give us a picture.
So like it kind of goes together, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
I got this from Megan Davis. I got that from Megan Davis as well.
I love that. So congratulations on being promoted to bigwig, aka the medical advisory board. I can't wait to see what the future holds for all of us. It's well deserved, well earned.
I can't I'm so excited for the future. It's just going to be bigger and brighter than we ever imagined.
That's amazing. So excited.
Nothing truer. Now, the second fun thing is Jessica is going to share her spirit vegetable with us.
When asked this question, I wasn't entirely sure what vegetable I would pick, but I went with broccoli because broccoli is been true my whole life. So it's never
the tried and true veggie.
Yes, the tried and true veggie.
I kind of look like broccoli right now.
I mean, I was thinking that.
After you fluff, you look like a good, healthy, organic head, organic stem of broccoli.
There we go.
Come alive. Yeah, fluff that up for us. Let's have some fun with this.
I definitely do look like broccoli now.
You kind of do.
Over air fried. Okay, there's our big wig.
Mr. Cotta.
Welcome back. I do have karaoke songs, so when we're together next, maybe we'll hit the karaoke scene.
Go.
Okay.
Let's
save
go.
my go-to karaoke songs for another time. Thank you both for bringing this conversation to Ideal Protein Nation. It's the first of many conversations of its kind. Thank you for watching, listening. Subscribe to the Life Possible podcast, which was recently recognized as one of the top 25 podcasts. Is that correct? Am I right in recalling that off the cuff?
Well, no, yeah, from Buzzsprout, where we actually upload the podcast of all the podcast hosts hosted on Buzzsprout. We're in the top 25%.
Top 25 is awesome. It is amazing. Like and follow the Real Women of Ideal Protein if you're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. There's a lot of good stuff going on out there. We're still in our Transformation 2024 and reading through Dr. Tran's book. The commitment was 4 pages a day because we can all do that. Thank you for tuning in and stay hydrated.
I love it. See
Bye,
you
everybody.
later.
Bye.